Right, here we go. Kia ora everyone, talofa, good evening, and welcome to this educational webinar on Touch New Zealand's Junior Touch Policy. My name is Monty Collins, the Respect and Inclusion Support Officer for Touch New Zealand, although many of you that might be involved in the game will obviously recognise me as one of the Awhi team at our Touch New Zealand tournaments and events. This evening, my learned colleagues and fellow teammates from Touch New Zealand and myself, as well as a very special guest from Sport New Zealand, are going to look to try and provide clarity for our framework and our policy and the direction of Junior Touch here in New Zealand. Basically, what we'd like to do is talk about the backgrounds and a number of different issues that have brought us to where we are now. So for those of you that have registered, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming in and watching this presentation, but also thank you for the questions that you provided. And we hope to answer all of those questions through our webinar this evening. Also, can I take this opportunity to thank our provinces who have been awesome and have helped us with support as well as feedback in terms of us shaping the framework that we're presenting to you tonight. Basically, we've got a pretty big evening and we're going to touch on a number of different areas of our Junior Touch policy and framework. But what we're also going to do is we're going to share the presentation with a number of our Touch New Zealand team. And something unique for this particular webinar is we're going to introduce a whakatauki or a proverb that underlines the essence of each of our topics that we're going to talk about tonight. So without further ado, what we're going to do is we'll get cracking. So if we look at the background of where we are now, it gives me a great opportunity to introduce our partnerships and project manager, Sandy Hackett, to talk about this topic. Sandy?
Thank you, Moni. Kia ora koutou. Thanks again, listeners, for tuning in, and apologies for the delay. We did have quite a big influx of people coming on at once, and it's really good to see the passion and the desire for people to tune in tonight, as mentioned before. The uniqueness of our Tamariki is what is guiding us on this new path. The sporting welfare and development of our New Zealand children has never been more important, given the increasing demands on our young people today. There's extensive research which has contributed to programs within our sporting framework in New Zealand, such as Good Sports, Balance is Better, our Touch New Zealand Awhi Sideline Support Program, even our sport preparation program, Touch Fit 360. We'll touch on some of these today in this webinar, but you can find out more about any of these programs on the Touch New Zealand website. We've got a new tab that's set up called Our Tamariki. Some of you may have been into this already, but any detail that you would like to see about any of the policies just mentioned, just pop onto that page. Here's a question for everybody. What do you think would be the top key reasons that motivate our Tamariki to play sport? And the first one, have fun. No surprises there. Kids just want to play with their mates. They want to learn new skills and be fit and healthy, have a sense of fair play, but have fun was yards ahead of anything else. Interestingly enough, winning ranked in the late 20s. There was a study conducted around 7 to 10 years ago by Dr. Simon Walters from Auckland University Technology, and that contributed to the Good Sports program being formed. Through those studies and many others, these key drivers have identified a need for a focus shift as sport deliverers in New Zealand. Not just us, not just Touch New Zealand, but other NSOs and Sport New Zealand as well. Collectively, we're looking to address this. We're lucky enough tonight to have Andrew Eade from Sport New Zealand, who will be able to speak to Balance is Better and some key statistics on children in sport. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Sandy. Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm delighted to be here tonight. It's great to see Touch putting on a webinar like this. What I've been asked to do, George has asked me basically to give you some context about what's happening at a national level from Sport New Zealand and across a lot of the NSOs. I'm fortunate to head the sport development team at Sport New Zealand, which is a team charged with basically working into junior sport and trying to ensure that we have the best systems possible so that our kids can really enjoy their sport and stay in sport. And you will hopefully be familiar with the Balance is Better philosophy that we developed over about the last 2 years, which is specifically focusing on youth sport in New Zealand, on our rangatahi. And I'm just going to unpick that a little bit for you here and also discuss how that overlaps with what you're talking about with your Tamariki. So I guess we'd start maybe by saying, well, what do we know about kids' sports? And I guess one of the things we know in New Zealand is that kids' sports for Tamariki is in pretty good shape. There's been lots of research into this, and you people will all know this because you all work in sport, that for the younger kids, and when I say Tamariki, I tend to refer to 5 to 10, that's how Sport New Zealand defines, and then rangatahi sort of more from 11 to 18, which I know is a little bit different from the way you look at it in Touch, but so if you just bear that in mind when I'm speaking. Lots of research, you know that for the Tamariki, it's in pretty good shape, sport, and the reason for that is about 30 years ago, there's a big culture change that started around sport for those younger kids, and all the games were modified to make them more suitable for the kids with a view to having higher levels of participation, and that's worked really well. I mean, there's room for improvement always, but basically it's worked really well. However, when we move on to rangatahi, and somewhere around when kids come into secondary school age, there's a big drop-off in numbers. And so what we've decided at Sport New Zealand, having talked to our partners and the national sporting organisations, is for the next 4 years, we really want to target that area. It's kind of the hardest area in sport, if you like. So from the kids from when they're about 11 through to 18 in that rangatahi space. And we want to see whether we can make a difference there and introduce a similar culture change to what happened back with the Tamariki about 30 years ago. So I guess part of it, I'm going to talk about Balance is Better a bit more in a minute, but first of all, it's useful to think, how do kids actually access sport? How do they get their sport? And it's good to know that they don't just get it in one way, they get it in a whole variety of ways, and they get it in both organised and informal settings, which are equally important. We sometimes think of sport as just being the organised sport and trying to get all the kids playing that, but there's a whole lot of unorganised sport, there's a whole lot of play and recreation. Sport New Zealand point of view, we're really focusing on trying to get more focus on that, because that's how some kids want to take part in their sport. And the big thing here is to try and find ways of encouraging more of the kids to stay in sport. And so what does that mean for how we provide the sport as organisations? So for Touch New Zealand, how are we going to provide sport that is going to work for those kids? Well, the key message here is one size doesn't fit all. So basically you need that variety of offerings for the kids to keep them involved, especially when you get into that rangatahi space. And when you think about it, for the rangatahi, it's an amazingly complex and difficult space. There's a whole lot of reasons why we have the drop-offs that we do have there. When you think of the kids, they're coming into secondary school, they're getting exam pressures for the first time in their lives. They're going through puberty, they're getting girlfriends, they're getting boyfriends. Some of them are starting to work because they have to produce some money. Their bodies are changing, they're going through growth spurts. There's a lot of individuation happening. It's really, really challenging. And I'm sure a lot of you have got teenage kids. I've got a 16-year-old teenage daughter. So I've seen all this happen, and it's a really challenging time. And what happens, unfortunately, at that stage when they're going through all these complex changes, sport narrows. And whereas in the Tamariki space, it was all just about participation and fun, suddenly in the rangatahi space, we've had this trend of high performance behaviours creeping lower and lower from where they should be, which is more up at the 16, 17 age, right down and sometimes even down to 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds. And what that does is it means the kids who want to compete and are a bit more talented, they're fine, they get everything they want. But for all the other kids who are turned off by that, they don't want to trial, they don't want to be pushing for rep teams, suddenly the support for them disappears. And you see this happening all the time. Broadly speaking, about 80% of the resource starts going towards the kids in that sort of talent pathway, and only about 20% goes to all the other kids. And so it's no wonder that we see this drop off in numbers. So Balance is Better is all about trying to change that. So it's about trying to get sports to recognise that that's happening, and to look at what they can do in their sports to try and improve that. And we've seen this work in New Zealand amongst a whole range of sports, and we've seen it work internationally. We brought over a guy from ice hockey, Hockey USA, last year, and they went down a path like this about 10 years ago, and they've had amazing results in participation. But intriguingly, they've also had amazing results in the performance end of their pathway, and they now produce more international players for the Stanley Cup than ever before. And this has been proven by research as well. So the idea that specialising early and pushing deeper and deeper performance behaviours produces better high performance athletes in the end actually isn't true. For every Tiger Woods that comes through, there's 100 kids who get burnt out, who get injured, who get fed up with the sport, and who drop out. And there's all those kids who mature late who never get an opportunity because they missed all of that, just simply because they grew later or they matured later. So there's a double reason for staying wide for longer. So what should the goal be for all the sports in New Zealand? What's the goal for Sport New Zealand? Well, what we want is we basically want more kids doing more, and that's in the rangatahi space. And we know that sport can bring amazing well-being outcomes for young people. And we know that our young people, our rangatahi, are challenged with all sorts of issues, not just physical fitness ones, but mental ones, social cohesion ones. And I'm sure you all know this because you're involved in sport. When it's delivered really well, sport can be an amazing thing for those young people. So we want more of them to be able to access it through their rangatahi years. And that's really the goal that Sport New Zealand set out on. We're under no illusions it will be easy. We're under no illusions that it will happen quickly. This is a long-term behaviour change process. And we're under no illusions that every sport is the same. We recognise that every sport is different. Touch is different to rugby, touch is different to football, touch is different to a whole range of different sports. What you have to do is you have to wrestle with the complexity in that space and work out how you can provide better opportunities that will keep more kids in touch for longer. And so I'm really excited to see that Touch New Zealand is launching down that pathway, and you've got your junior pathway and you're engaging with the people at the ground level. One of the things we've learned is everything happens at a local level. So national bodies can sit and create policies, but at the end of the day, it's the people who are out there delivering the sport that matter, and you've got to be on board with what's happening. So I'd commend you to listen with an open mind to everything that follows, and at all times be thinking of that wider group of rangatahi, and with that goal of trying to keep more of them in sport for longer, because it will produce better outcomes for their well-being, which is what we all want. So good luck for tonight and for the challenges ahead. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you, and I'll hand back to Sandy.
Thanks very much for that, Andrew. Really awesome to have you part of the kaupapa tonight, and thanks so much for Sport New Zealand's support right throughout the whole process of us navigating the path that we're going through right now. Really appreciate that.
Very welcome.
We'll touch more specifically on the overall outcomes sought by Touch New Zealand, and in particular the changes to the structure in the under-14s representative format, known to most as the Junior Interprovincial Series. Broadly speaking, from Touch New Zealand's perspective, our overarching key goal is to provide a more holistic environment to rangatahi and tamariki. We want to cultivate a love of sport, a lifelong love of sport, and whichever form it comes in, we want to cater to the majority. We want to cater to everybody, but we don't want to miss out on a lot of the children. In February this year, Touch New Zealand developed the Junior Touch policy, supported with the principles of AWHI, to provide a framework for children's participation in the game of touch. The following information touches on the values of the Junior Touch policy. It's been developed to support the new focus and also to assist with understanding of the communities, of all of our communities, the parents, the players, the referees, coaches, managers, in our support of Tamariki and their game. On that note, I'll hand the reins back to Mon. Thanks, Mon.
Thanks, Ans, and thanks, Andrew, and thanks again to all those people that are just joining us for this webinar on our Junior Touch policy for Touch New Zealand and for New Zealand. So if you're a little bit late coming into the program, just bear in mind that this webinar is actually going to be a support resource for our provinces, as well as for anybody that's actually keen to learn more about the direction of Touch for Juniors here in New Zealand, but also our Junior Touch policy and framework. Interesting that I've opened up with this slide and this whakatauki saying be kind to all. And that's pretty much because of my role from the awhi area of tournaments and events. If you have any semblance of connection to touch, you'll know that like other sports, touch have had issues with our sidelines. Now, thanks to the support of our provinces, thanks to the support of our players, our coaches, our managers, our referees, and also just a lot of people that's involved. Thank you so much for helping us get awhi to where it is now, where a lot of the issues at hand that were prevalent in the past are now no longer there. Now we're basically building awhi to be more than just a sideline support program. We're now looking at awhi as providing a platform so we can create positive and supportive environments now. Because here's the sad truth. Those 4 images up there was me. So we've heard about the academic research and the academic findings of sport for juniors. But when it comes to touch and when it comes to our sport, I was sadly an example of what we needed to change. And that in itself is probably why it helped me actually help implement and write the awhi program, so that we can actually move away from these ugly scenes and actually move towards the picture of happy faces, to have supportive parents enjoying watching their kids enjoy their sport rather than playing under the pressure of a win or under the pressure of coaches that didn't quite see what the kids wanted. It was more about us as adults rather than thinking about kids as kids. So thank you for everybody that's actually helped us. The amount of work that our provinces have done towards implementing awhi at their levels of representative as well as at modules. We're even having the great joy of having awhi on social media platforms. The Touch Pod project is an example of where we're getting the word of awhi out there, not only at tournaments and at events, but also just to the mainstream population. So thank you for that. awhi has also now helped us actually create an opportunity where we've been able to start looking at the wider picture. And that wider picture for us at Touch New Zealand is about creating a respect and inclusion program or a mana manaki framework. And our leading whakatauki for that is the whakatauki that I started with during this presentation. Be kind to all. And the great thing is that we've already started to see the benefits. Over the last couple of years, we have started to see, from a respect and inclusive aspect, we're seeing higher participation and more teams because kids are enjoying it. And these are some of the benefits that we're hoping for moving forward. We're seeing participant-focused programs. This is about respecting the participant, respecting the player, respecting the child. We're now looking and seeing equal opportunities for everybody. No longer do we need to see kids be turned away and go home because they haven't made a team. We want to make sure that all our competition is balanced for everybody. The starters as well as the more experienced and the more, dare I say it, the more talented. So again, just thinking about our pathways to continued learning and providing more opportunities. All of these are part of our Respect and Inclusion or Mana Manaki framework, which was originally driven from awhi and which was originally supported by you. So to talk to you a little bit more about our mana manaki, but also other aspects of this. Let me bring into play now our Pathways and Wellbeing Educational Officer, Pam Hyde, and Pam will actually talk a little bit. Pam?
Kia ora, thanks, Moni. Apologies if my video isn't working. I'm obviously not a very technically minded person tonight, so please accept my apologies. But kia ora koutou. Evening, everyone. Thank you once again for taking time to be part of this information sharing evening. Tonight we'll explore our sport's vision of wellbeing and its application to our tamariki. So at the heart of our wellbeing approach is people. He aha, te mea nui o te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing on earth? The people, the people, the people. People in this particular instance being our tamariki. As highlighted by Sporting Z and my colleagues, Touch New Zealand as a sport are responding to a need to modify our junior program to ensure that the health and wellbeing of our tamariki is at the forefront. As you've heard tonight, we aspire for all tamariki to have a long love and engagement in our sport through positive experiences. In this segment, we'll explore health and wellbeing. Often you'll hear health and wellbeing described as a balance of strength and stability in life. Our Touch New Zealand Wellbeing Framework also reflects our organisation's commitment that we value people's physical, mental and spiritual wellbeing. We value recreation and learning. We value integrity and unity. We value cultural diversity. We value people. These principles also resonate in our mana manaki framework. The Touch New Zealand Wellbeing Framework is based on the well-known wellbeing model by Mason Drury, Te Whare Tapawha. This model resonates with our sport and approach to wellbeing, in which there are 4 dimensions or cornerstones that are applied to a person's health and wellbeing. These are taha tinana, physical wellbeing, taha hininaro, mental and emotional wellbeing, taha whānau, social wellbeing, and taha wairua, spiritual wellbeing. The strength of wellbeing is recognised that each aspect is connected to the person and where they stand, providing a person-centric holistic approach to haora. At the same time, also recognising that it takes all 4 aspects to provide structure and foundation for wellbeing. And as Sandy highlighted previously, a holistic approach is our aim for our tamariki's wellbeing model. So let's explore wellbeing further. What does a more positive experience provide in relation to wellbeing? For mental and emotional, it provides heightened positive feelings and emotions, great correlations between positive experience and the sport. For whānau and social, extending friendships, being part of a community, which is critical to our sport. For wairua or spirituality, simply a positive sense of belonging. For tinana or physical, the engagement in playing sport, along with the positive endorphins played or gained from playing sport. So how does more children having fun fit into the principles of wellbeing? In a very simplistic manner. It creates positive thoughts and provides a fun learning environment. It provides family fun opportunities and offers connections for communication with whānau and friends. It develops an understanding of connections. And on a physical aspect, it enables someone to get exercise and be active. Again, these aspects are not elaborate, but the connections are important to the development of our tamariki moving forward. So for enhanced skills development, how does this fit within the 4 dimensions of wellbeing? It provides a platform for cognitive maturation development. Children learn at age blocks. The increased understanding of skills and strategies provide further learning for mental and emotional well-being. Awareness of potential different communication styles and aspects form part of the whānau and social well-being. A strong self-belief in achieving goals forms a connection with our wider and spiritual well-being. And a positive environment leads to more physical activity and exercise being a component of tinana physical well-being. A safe environment. Again, how does this connect with well-being? It enables an awareness of what is safe, thoughts, cognitions, enabling a positive feeling to be carried forward. Providing opportunities for whānau enjoyment and building on relationships and sharing experiences with friends is critical to our young ones. Developing a concept of what an environment of safety and protection from harm is. For spirituality, this provides a platform for building connections and a sense of belonging. And for a safe environment, the minor risks of significant injuries for our young ones is critical. For health and well-being itself, one of the key aims of well-being for our tamariki and our sport is that we take care of our children, take care of what they hear, take care of what they see, take care of what they feel. So this is just a brief overview of the holistic approach for well-being as we've looked at our junior policy. So thank you for your time tonight and your interest in our tamariki and the sports policy. I'd now like to introduce my colleague, George Yonke. Kia ora, George.
Kia ora, Pam. Hopefully you can. You can't see me, which is probably a good thing to many of you out there tonight. It's been a bit late, early mornings. But I'd like to lead into this session with our whakatauki. Ina ki te mohi o koe, wai koe. Ina mai koe I hia, kei te mohi o koe ki te anga atu ki hia. If you know who you are and where you are from, then you will know where you are going. Okay, that's a good whakatauki to lead us into our next component of the session, which is leading to the timeline summary of the junior framework. It's been 3 years in the making, and as you can see, as the first timeline insertion there, we've got from October 2018, the UFI review in relation to the junior strategy, where things were taking place, and there was communications a lot longer before that date with Sport NZ and other sport facilities around New Zealand. And then it led to February 2000, earlier this year, where the implementation of the junior policy came into fruition. And here we are tonight with the info and education session that is taking us further. Great things take time, and here we are now moving on forward with this process. So working towards the junior framework implementation, which is our next slide, we have the research and the framework all in place now. And it would be great if we could just click our fingers and everything goes into action and everything falls into place. But as we know, implementation takes a little bit more than that, a little bit more of understanding and a lot more work in the background. Provinces and people within our community have been doing a lot of work already, and it is a scary thing. There's a lot of change going on, but we must understand it's with the best interests of the holistic view of our people. So what it requires is shifts and openness in mindsets and structures. So what Touch New Zealand has done is established a 3-year plan to support the shift and implementation. As my Pākehā whakatauki there goes, Rome was not built in a day. But before we move on into the 3-year plan, as you can see on the screen now, we have the Touch NZ Pathway Framework, which was established over 3 years ago. It's broken into 4 communities or 4 pathway opportunities. We may be going a little bit fast there. Hopefully it's not because I'm slow. I am getting old, but not that slow with my vocab there. So foundation, you'll see is step 1 in green, and the key headline there is participation and social. Step 2 will be development, practice, and achievement. If you can look down the bottom, you'll see 5 to 13 is the common age group that's related to those sectors. And then if we move along, then we have performance and high performance. Performance being the first sign of our representation and success. Look at the age group, 14 plus. This has been in play for about 3 years now. And then we go on to high performance, our touch blacks, our stars, our rock stars that are performing across the world and against Australia. That's 14 plus. And as you know, within our systems, our rock stars are getting younger and younger. If we move along, we know that that's been in place and that aligns with Sport NZ's frameworks, but it hasn't been aligned in the events program. So if we move to our next slide, and we're talking about working towards the 3-year holistic ideals in 3 years. So year 1, which you'll see on your screen there, which has a few bullet points there, but I've highlighted a couple there just to illustrate what year 1 focuses are for me. Education and information. People that usually get the education in these systems agree, but not everyone gets the opportunity to hear these stories and the research behind them. So it's our job and your job to keep spreading this news. Inclusive festivals. Remember that word inclusive. We'll use it quite a bit throughout the system instead of exclusive, which we do use a lot of today or in the past in our current frameworks. And the last one there is support systems for practice and templates. So while this is all happening, it's a great idea, but a lot of work needs to go in the background to supporting the events, the tournaments, the new systems that are coming into play. We know you're all volunteers and you're giving your love and you're doing a great job there. We're going to help as much as we can from the top end here. Moving on to year 2, what I'd like to highlight there is increased tamariki participation. If you don't know me, a good thing to know about me, my aim for touch is to be the biggest participation sport in New Zealand. And I don't see why we can't. And if we all work as a team, we could be the biggest participation sport in New Zealand. We're pretty close to it, but I want that title all up to its own. In that year 2, you'll see down the bottom, review and evaluate. It's quite important. As we're going through the system, this is all new. We've got the research, we've got the framework, but we're learning along the way. So we need to be a little bit fluid here, and we may have to do a few adjustments now and then to adjust to our membership and the systems going into play. And year 3, there could be slight changes in that system there, and review and evaluation is the key element there. But the points are there written in the document there for you to see what our current headlines are currently. So moving along. How does our system set up, or our pathway for events work in the current system or in our past system? So we have a 2-tier system that we really have been focusing on in the past. Our first one is our module base, which deals with all the modules around New Zealand. We get 65,000 junior participants working in that area, a huge number. And the key element for that is foundation, participation and social. Getting in there, having a good time, creating a love for the game and just playing the game. The next step that currently we have in structure is our events. But if you look at it, it's in red. It's performance events. So under 10s, 12s and 14s are selected at a representative level for success. So within that plan, it's all targeted about results. And when you have 300 trialing for reps and then you select a small number, if you're selected, how lucky are you? You're going to be developed within the pathway and you're going up the pyramid there. But if you don't get selected in that core group, what happens to you? Currently in most provinces around New Zealand, we don't have enough structures to develop or keep those people in. For some people, their season finishes in December, don't make the rep program, that's it. Half a summer of touch and then they have to wait till the next year. We need to do something about that. Our second phase in our pathway framework is development. You'll see it's not highlighted in these colors here, but it is catered for in the green and in the red, but not on its own. So moving forward to our next slide, where we have our new simplified process of 3 tiers within the program. Remember, this is very simplified. So in some provinces, they're catering for it. Depends on what town to town and province to province, how it works. So it's a very simplified approach. Our first one, foundation module, you all know about that one. Then we move on to our second one. And this is where you'll see development coming in, where we're working on it. It's nice and blue, and we have the extender series in this area. What the extender series is, an opportunity created by provinces or modules or individuals to create opportunity for more kids to develop. This section is inclusive, not exclusive. So you don't have to be at a particular level to be a part of this sector. So within this level, anyone can register as they want to develop through the program. So those 400 kids or 300 kids that we're trialing out can all come to this and all develop as a touch player, not just playing the game. Now they can be a real touch player and develop a love for the game. And it's nice and blue. And our third system is the events like we had in the previous timeline, but this one is now blue. It's not red, structured around representation and success. It's still about development, practice, and achieve. So in that area there, so with this one, it's still inclusive, a lot more tournaments and events going on in this structure and opportunities to play. So it's not that small group, it's a greater group getting those opportunities. So if we take a snapshot within our community right now, a lot of provinces have been working on this and having a lot of discussions in the back rooms already and getting things in place. So if we narrow it down to the central region, so there's 3 regions across New Zealand. There's the northern region, central region, and the southern region. In the central region, we have Wellington, Kapiti Horowhenua, Manawatu, Hawke's Bay, Whanganui, and Taranaki. They've all collated together and put a plan in place. Well done, team. You've been very proactive there. And straight away off the cuff, when we go to our third tier there with events and festivals, they've doubled the number of events that are available in the calendar for the central region to participate in. So straight away, more numbers of athletes having the opportunity to go through the pyramid and develop their skill sets. Also, each province have said that they've agreed to some sort of extender series or development program for 4 to 3 weeks that will develop any kid that wants to go through the pathway and develop themselves to be a better athlete, enjoy the fun, inclusive occasions as well. So on those extended programs, they'll be doing skill sessions, but most importantly, they'll be having mini tournaments and games. Like Sandy said earlier, it's all about fun, being with your mates, and you can all come together. And as we found in module, when you have 65,000 people playing at module base, the numbers of quality coaches and people actually getting coached how to play the game is very small. Now they have to opt the opportunity to get development in the extended programs and the festivals as well. So the other highlight of this is that red is taken out of the equation here. There may be some gifted children that go on to be into the red category, but we need to cater for the large numbers of kids in that area that are missing the boat in that sector. So what I also want to highlight is now that we've got a clear development process, that becomes it more attractive for more coaches coming in. It's not as threatening going straight to a performance level. Referees, it's a comfortable setting for them to develop instead of trying to be the star referee, refereeing almost the touch blacks at an under 12s tournament, which is expected sometimes from our coaches, our parents, supporters, and managers. It's a very supportive environment where they can develop in. So hopefully that gives you an idea where we're going to this year and that there's a lot of systems in place already. Please contact your province just to check what they've got going on. We're trying to work with them in the background. And if they haven't got anything in place, give them a little tap on the shoulder to give us a call. Moving on to our next slide, I just want to give you an illustration on how the pyramid looks. So this is our growth and pathway pyramid. In the ideal world, this pyramid on the left is how it looks. It looks strong, robust, and relates to the holistic development of participants throughout their career with a big base and a lot of participants going up that pyramid, which is great. And then if we move to what's been happening in the past, and if we do a quick little drawing of what it looked like, we've got a strong base of participants at module, but then no real care from there. If you make it into the IPS program, which is the Interprovincial Series, you're well on your way, but as we discussed, it's a very small number. The other point I'd like to highlight within this little old graph here was that you notice the red goes a lot lower, and so they're getting trained in the performance rounds, which is cool, which is fine, but some children aren't ready for that. This triangle here, we can go on to that one there. The triangle, the next one here, this is the upside down triangle. So this is what's naturally happening within our systems and a lot of other sports, where we have our pyramid, but performance and high performance are really trying to nail in onto our development and foundation areas and using that resource to cater for people within that foundation and development. It's great for some of the people, which is a minority of our group, but also it's a huge resource going into a small amount of people. And if we keep doing that, we're just narrowing our pyramid and we're not going to have as many coming out up the top. So that will give you a quick snapshot there from a junior player up to a touch black on their junior and what they have to face as they go along the system. And that relates back to Andrew Eads. And if we go to the next slide, which I like to summarize everything we've talked about here in our high five towards the holistic ideals. Number one will be work together. That's all of us that are here and in the community working together towards a 3-year plan of holistic ideals. Number two, now we're working to 3 key systems in the pathway events instead of 2, and I've outlined those. Number 3 is more experiences and opportunities in the development sector or community, 14s and under. Number 4 will be about realigning performance to the 14 plus community. Okay, so that's where reps should really start. Once you hit 14, that's where you show your stuff, and provinces should be building that base, having large numbers, trialing for that 16s and 18s. And the feedback I'm getting from where they have the 10s, 12s and 14s, where there's abundance of numbers there, but when they get to the 16s and 18s, they're finding they're actually quite short in some grades to even have a trial, which is quite discerning, and it shows that our current system isn't working. So we're looking forward to changing that and putting it on its head. The last but not least, high five is about assess, research and reflect through our processes. So as we're going along, we're going to be reflecting on it, taking the data, getting the feedback and maneuvering through the systems in a fluid way to get the right approach going forward. So hopefully that gives you a little snapshot of how we're looking at it from our realm. And that sort of sums up the framework and the timeline. So when it comes to these events we talked about with the extender programs and the new festivals and tournaments that are going on, TouchFit 360 is a little bit of a project that Touch New Zealand has. It's a framework to maintain and improve performance of body and mind. It's a link between us and ACC to improve our players and also the care of our players. The framework is highly supported by the community coaching sector, which I'm the manager of. So we're in charge of that, to making sure that goes out to the provinces and community. The sector offers tangible and online education and support through courses, resources, and activation programs and support packages. So we're doing a lot of things through tournaments, and you've seen us at a lot of the other tournaments. That'll be all still going on. As the junior framework rolls out, the sector will continue to support programs that align with the holistic ideas where possible. Now there's a lot going on. We have to come back and take a breath and see how we can help everyone. But it looks like a very exciting season for us, and that's what I expected last year. And it's all about the education to our people in the sector and in our community. So if we can spread the word, get them onto this online resource and get the understanding what you have tonight, I think we'll be in a better place. Kia ora koutou. If you have any questions, send it in. We'll try and join up the dots, but I challenge you to think about what we have to deal with. Right now, we're dealing with a minority group and putting them in the pathway, where we want to take that to Touch for All, a bigger community of opportunity and experiences. Touch the game in every community. Kia ora koutou.
Thanks, Georgie, and hopefully that's helped clarify a number of questions that have come through from our registered participants, as well as some of the questions that we've been fielding over the past couple of weeks from interested people in the touch community, as well as our provinces. Talking or just moving along from where Georgie and the Touch Fit 360 and our community coaching team are involved at events, it's a pretty exciting time also for AWHI. So hopefully this year what we're going to do is we're going to increase the exposure of AWHI at our events, and we're going to basically look to try and provide more support for everybody involved in the game. So we're looking to, through our support and our partnership with Etu Whānau, we're going to have, for instance, an AWHI tent at the tournaments, where we're going to be able to sit down and have some real heart-to-heart corridors with people around the game, but also to be able to provide some educational sessions for parents and coaches and managers and even players in terms of what AWHI means to them, not only as a sport within touch, but also as members of our wider community. I guess this probably now leads me to introduce our CEO, Joe Sprangers, who's going to touch on a summary of tonight.
Thank you, Moni. Kia ora whānau, ngā mihi nui ki tātou I tēnei wā. But thank you all for joining us tonight. We had over 100 registrations for the event, and it told us from the outset how engaged everybody was and how keen everyone was to learn more about this. And we probably underestimated that in some respects. So yeah, people really do care, and you know, and we really do appreciate that, and we really are appreciative of the fact that you've all come on the call, you're all engaged, and you all want to know the way forward. And you know, we're here to help you. We're there to help achieve that. So as Moni said in summary, and I won't keep you long, it's been pretty much a 3-year journey for us to get to this point where we are chatting to you today. We've done our best to listen to all the membership, the Tamariki, and we've done the research and got the evidence through all the various places such as Sport NZ and all the work that's been done in that space. We've obviously made the decision across the board that balance is better, and an AWHI response to developing our Tamariki is the key to our progress forward. Our junior strategy and policy and the guidelines are the culmination of that important mahi. We've also, as George has pointed out, this is a 3-year program, so it's not, so it's evolution, not revolution. And we're looking forward to working with you all to implement the junior strategy, including the tournament and event structure, which I know that everybody's really keen to learn about. The overriding theme for us and the overriding theme from tonight, which we hope you take away, is one of education and well-being, along with total inclusion for all Tamariki. Again, you know, I just want to thank you all for joining us. We look forward to supporting you all on your journey. We apologise for the IT issues tonight and slightly late start. If you've missed anything on the webinar, we're going to be posting it later on, and you'll be able to watch it again and see the entire episode. Again, if you've got any questions or anything that, any issues that have arisen out of this presentation for you that you'd like clarification on, feel free to send them through to us through email, through the links, through our Facebook. Everything's monitored, and we'll do our very best in order to get back to you and respond to those questions. But again, we can't thank you enough for being here tonight with us. We've really enjoyed the presentation and providing it to you. And we're really, really keen to continue working with you all in the best interest of our sport and the best interest of our Tamariki, and just for everyone to have fun and enjoy what we're all doing together. So again, thank you so much. Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Moni. Thanks,
Joe. And thank you, everybody, again, from the bottom of our hearts in terms of plugging in and joining us tonight for this webinar. What I thought I'd do is actually finish the webinar with our very first slide that you came into seeing. And this is a really important slide because this is about us working together. This is not something that Touch New Zealand can do on its own, and so that's why we're very excited to have so many people interested. And again, this webinar is going to be a supporting resource for everybody that's interested in learning more about Touch for Juniors here in New Zealand. But again, as it says, My strength is not as an individual, but that as a collective. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you for being part of this journey, and thank you for being part of this new direction for our kids. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is our kids. So thank you very much. Taftai lava, ngā mihi nui. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, and thanks for joining us.